Welcome to the Digging Deeper podcast, brought to you by New Hope Church. My name is Matt, and I'm so very excited to dive into today's topic. Before we get there, though, let's go around the room and see how everybody's doing. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
We are in the throes of it, man.
It's feeling very construction-y.
It is very dusty and smelly and yet exciting. We are trying to focus clearly on the beauty of it all amidst the mess.
Yeah.
So that both means with people and lives and also means with construction.
That's right.
So we're excited, but there's been lots of amazing ministry pivots and adjustments to accommodate where we're at. So excited for that. And doing well, thanks.
Good, man.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, it's cool. The last couple weeks and the next couple weeks, we've got a lot of offsite things planned, and it's cool to see how, you know, God can use that force of being somewhere else, which can be logistically a challenge to just bring the environment that's needed for what he wants to do that night. Like last night, we had all the young women from senior youth in the library of Power Glen Public School digging into this week's sermon and the youth talk before, the week before on marriage and dating, which was awesome. All the guys were at another school and they were able to do that. And being at the water park last week for junior youth was just awesome. And so it's cool that all these things that we have to do become things we get to do. And God uses them to do something awesome. So
It does. That's true.
we're going to be in everyone's homes next week for youth and junior youth. Each life group will be in a different home from someone from our church, which is so cool.
Beauty.
So it's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
How about you, Matt? You're kind of leading a team of 100.
Matt is currently wearing safety work boots, by the way. He's momentarily taken off his hard hat to sit and do this.
No, you know what? Things are going absolutely awesome. I talk about this a lot, but it's because I'm still blown away that just how many volunteers step up when the call is given. And I mean, right, even today, we got painting going on, we got construction going on, we're building a shed, we're, you know, all these different projects and just people so full of
two
joy.
sewing machines.
We got
in the
two
sanctuary.
sewing machines going. That's right. Like it just, you know, but it is so incredibly encouraging to see the joy and the hope, you know, that our volunteers have, because they realize that sewing the curtain or building the wall or painting a wall are all actually part of creating a safe space.
Yes.
And they get it, and they're on mission, and it's, you know, it's so cool to see them using these gifts and talents. So I get really encouraged. So like it's busy for sure, but it's such an encouraging thing walking in and knowing you got all these volunteers just jumping into the fray. And so it's really good, really good. So today I want to dive into PT's sermon from Sunday, the dating checklist sermon, which is a really good one. And there's a lot in there, and so I want to spend some time just unpacking a few pieces of that with you guys. PT's actually away this week, so I was kind of hoping to get him on this podcast because it is such a big list.
He said it. We have to sit here now.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. He's like, well, you guys have to do it. I'm out. It's good. But no, there's you know, this list, this dating checklist isn't something we just arbitrarily made up. I mean, this is years of work and research and meeting with people and processing stuff with people and looking at scripture. And, you know, it is a pretty high call on people. To something much bigger than I think people are used to. And I would encourage our listeners, if you haven't listened to that sermon yet or watched that sermon yet, you need to go back and do that, because it'll give a lot more context to the things we're going to talk about today. But, you know, the first question I really have is like, why do we hold such a high standard and a high bar for ourselves and also our kids? You know, why is that kind of the New Hope structure when it comes to this dating checklist? Maybe Nate starts out on this one.
Because Jesus did.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The Bible says so.
The Bible says so.
I think it's not just a high standard. It's actually a higher, more beautiful calling. Like we can live and call people to that, and we can work ourselves in our own marriages, our own homes to live into that as best we can, because we believe it is indeed the abundant life. And it is more beautiful than what the world offers. Yeah. And yet it's, you know, it's a higher calling for sure. But I don't think we unashamedly we're happy to call people to it, because we really do believe that it is the abundant life. It is more beautiful, and it will be free to live that out. Not that it'll be easy. Yeah. It'll be free to live that out.
Yeah. I think just picking up on something Pastor Tom said is, does this sound judgy? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It is all about judging.
Mhm.
But for whom and in which situation are
Yeah.
we saying you want to be judging where
Yeah.
someone is at? And it's this very specific situation
Mhm.
of selecting your potential future spouse and possible father, mother of your children for the rest of
Yeah.
their lives.
Yeah.
And this is not about selecting your friends, who you should be friends with,
Mhm.
or who you should have faith fives with, who should come to our church. It's not about who your current spouse should be. So if you're currently married and they don't meet this checklist, should you separate? Certainly not.
That's right.
It's about a trajectory, though. When we comes to like our current marriages, it's a great thing to say, do we have these things in place? Do we have a written budget? Oh, we don't.
Mhm.
Well, we should
Mhm.
establish that.
Yeah.
So properly thinking about in which scenario are we suggesting using this checklist mentality for is very specific,
Mhm.
and it is not at all how we would say who should be part of New Hope Church. It's not that. That's everyone, wherever we are in the mess and the brokenness.
Yeah.
And who should you be loving towards? Well, this is not about that. This is about who's the person you should select as your future spouse and possible future
Mhm.
parent with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this, one of the questions always comes out of it, with such a high standard, when you don't meet that standard, what do you even do? Like,
Mhm.
there's people probably looking at this going like, I'm not even close to this. Like, how do they engage with this? What does that look like to either, get into this and screw it up, or you're going like, I'm nowhere near this.
Mhm.
What's kind of the response to that?
Hmm.
How do you walk with people through
Well, maybe I'll use an example.
Yeah.
So maybe you've been dating 6 months
it? Mm-hmm.
and you don't have a written budget. Should you immediately break up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, maybe not. But maybe you should develop a written budget. So
Mhm.
there are some things that are trajectory items.
Yeah.
Or like another good example is, I think one of the things on there is spiritual gifts. That's not do they or do they not have spiritual gifts?
Yeah.
Oh, they don't. I should break it. Well, clearly, no, we just learned that everyone has spiritual gifts. And so some of the things on the checklist are a checklist of things you guys should discuss
Yeah.
as you're discerning whether you should continue dating.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, no, we should talk about that and see what's God's call on my life, what's God's call on your life.
Mhm.
Do we know what those are as
Yeah.
we're going on good, meaningful dates? And could we serve God better together than apart in that mutual calling? So some of those things aren't like black and white. Some of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we do not date people who are not Jesus-centered Christians.
Yeah.
But a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are directional in that trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think often of the pre-engagement counseling we do in this area too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We don't start there. We start with, do you you share, well, let's talk about values. What do you both
Yes.
value? Like, we start with a values
Yes.
list. We start with faith questions. We start with that sort of stuff. And then we
Yeah.
get into, communication skills, past stuff from family history, like that sort of thing. And like, I think the last one is sexual expectations, like we
Yes.
don't, we don't start with like, so how often do you anticipate having sex, and what kind of kids, how many kids are you both going to
That's
have,
right.
Yes.
17-year-olds?
It's not.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not second dates.
So,
No,
yeah.
that's
And
right,
that's why the call in that process piece is to have someone help you do this, because in every person's situation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's appropriate at that age and stage and your family of origin and where you're at in your faith,
Mhm.
like, it's all very individual. The principles, the biblical principles are the same, but what that's going to specifically look like could be different. And the specifics are important, because when our hearts get all gushy, and I use the term Twitter-pated, which I then found out no one knew what that meant. So it's a reference to Bambi, which
That's
anyway,
right.
I won't get it. But when we get all, excited and lovey-dovey and we're fluttery,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes having, and we actually talked to the youth about this last night, or at least I did to the ladies, having in our minds very clear boundaries that we have, talked to God about
Mhm.
when it's all messy, and we know I've put this boundary here,
Yeah.
then helps us maintain the values we know we have and we want to have as Christians.
Yeah.
So getting specific is important, but the specifics for one person might look really different for the specifics for another person, of how you go on this trajectory to
Yeah.
setting yourself up for a Christ-centered marriage,
Mm-hmm.
or continuing to have and build a Christ-centered marriage.
Yeah, that's right. So the kind of the next question that comes to me with this, because this list is like, doing pre-engagement people. This is great. Like,
Sure.
to go through this list with them, and it's been really I found it very, very helpful to help focus us as we're discussing things. But, one of the questions always, I think, comes up, especially for people who have, been married for years or whatever, or been with someone for years and they've just become a Christian. And all of a sudden they got this huge list and, their spouse or significant other might not be a Christian. How do you navigate that with them? How do you, work through that with them? What would be your guys' encouragement to them? Because there's some pretty practical stuff in there. So
I'll only say one sentence and I'll turn it over to Nate.
Okay.
The first question is, are there children involved?
Mm-hmm.
Because that practically makes a big difference of the realm of things that would be wise.
Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah. So people who have been living together or married and are not Christians, and then one of them becomes a Christian and they have children.
Mm-hmm.
There are some clear, specific directions on that you're not to leave your spouse in that situation, and that you're to stay in the situation you were in when you came to Christ. But that might be very different from two people who are dating. There's no children involved, and one becomes a Christian. Yeah. So I will leave it there, and I'll turf it to Pastor Nate.
I might disagree with Sarah a little bit on that one, but that's mostly just in terms of like when you met Jesus, stay in the state you're in, and then see both. There's some ways of staying in that state that don't involve continual sin either.
That's
but
right.
That's a quick
right.
preface. I think the reality in this is as people have shown you integrity and respect in your own spiritual journey, you got to show others that respect as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you have like if I was to counsel the couple, and correct me if I'm off base on some of your question here, Matt, but if I'm about to counsel a couple and one is just recently started coming to church, got baptized, and loves her alpha, and her husband has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I ask that person, because the goal often is, you have to come to church with me. You have to come to church with me. You have to come, because they see that as like the means to salvation.
That's right.
And my goal is to have the spouse dedicate themselves to hours of prayer every day for their significant other, for their partner or
good.
Husband or wife, wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And I laugh a little bit of the ending of the video, Case for Christ with Lee Strobel. The movie was actually really good.
Yeah.
It was shocking, Christian movies are just awesome.
But it was great.
And like she just started every day, give him a heart of flesh and not a heart of stone. Give him a heart of flesh and not a heart of stone. Give him a heart of flesh and not a heart of stone. And I go like, there's something beautiful about her praying without ceasing for her husband's salvation that didn't have some sort of strategy to get him to behave. Didn't have some sort of strategy to fix them. If he just attended in tithe, then he would be okay.
That's right.
It was, I want him to know and encounter you, Jesus, and have a soft heart.
Yeah.
And I think then God opens doors and avenues that maybe you didn't see, versus I've seen many spouses go like, if they just attend church in a life group. And I go like, I don't know, like there's been lots of people who wandered in and out of church and never accepted Jesus. Right. But that maybe is my encouragement.
No, I will double down on that and saying, like, when you're praying and asking and seeking the Holy Spirit in prayer, there's very little of your own selfish motives that can come into action there.
Mm-hmm.
And your desire to maybe have your spouse come to church, come to life group, certainly it's for them. But surely some of that is also for yourself. Well, I see all these other Christian couples who get to worship together, and I want that. And that's a good longing.
Yeah.
But maybe, as Nate said, maybe that's not the way that God is going to draw them to himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the picture you painted there is really beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in, as we're looking at this checklist, like it's a checklist. So you want to check off the list. Right. Like that's where you want to go right away, right? But you got to look at what's behind the checklist, which is to draw people closer to Christ and to honor him in the way you live. And that has to be at the core of doing all of these things.
Yes. And so, it's a foundational question, right?
Yeah.
Are we sharing a foundation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, values is where we start with pre-engagement stuff. Like, are we sharing a foundation here? And often in this checklist, we're going like, is it a good or bad list? No. It's a foundational question. Are we sharing this foundation? Yes or no? And if we don't share the same foundation, we will build a house on shaky foundation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Literally build your house. Or your kids, your family. So it's that's the question. And sometimes people make it into this big spirituality checklist. And I go like, that's not what it is. It's a foundational question. Because every relationship is built on something. So what are you going to build it on?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's good to clarify that, because it is very easy on a Sunday morning to get overwhelmed, because it's just like, here's the whole list. But when you get back to that, no, this is about planning a good, firm foundation.
Yeah.
and when back to that question of what about people who have just become Christians and stuff, it doesn't really change. You work on the foundation, and that first part of that foundation is praying over and for your significant other to accept Christ, because that's point number one.
And you most likely agree on the majority of morality.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to raise your kids to lie.
Yeah.
You want your house to be a place of open and honest. You'd love to be generous people.
Yeah.
Where your money goes, you're not sure, but you want to be generous people. Like the principles of the Christian faith are probably more commonly shared than not. So
that's right. Absolutely. So I wanted to just unpack that a bit, but I actually want to shift gears a little bit in here, because there were some pretty interesting statements that PT made in there that I wanted to kind of give you guys an opportunity to unpack a little bit and give some context to. And so I'm going to give you a statement, and then I'd like you guys just to unpack it a little bit. So it's a quote from the sermon. It says, if you marry a non-Christian, it is likely your children will go to hell. And I'm sure that made some people in the room uncomfortable a little bit. And I can understand that.
Yeah.
So can you just kind of give some context to that statement and unpack it a little bit for me?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I'll just speak anecdotal evidence first.
Yeah, absolutely.
From my time in ministry, my life in the church, and from the people I know, is when faced with an option to follow Jesus or not follow Jesus, and watching your parents do two opposite things, it is very difficult for children to choose that. Now, I don't think that statement is just notice the wording. It is likely.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So some people go like, they're all doomed and destined, and no, that's not what we believe. We actually have more faith that God's going to do something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But anecdotal evidence would suggest that many of them wander away. In fact, we've all wandered away. So we don't need more opportunities to wander. We're prone to wander.
Mm-hmm.
So any opportunity to wander, when you give them an opportunity or they see another option, see an indifference in the home, don't see it modeled.
Mm-hmm.
That's an opportunity for a different statistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to add on to that, to be clear about what we're not saying, is this is not some sort of now they're impure because one of their parents is not a Christian, and you're saved if your parents are Christian. So there any sort of like a curse or a disqualification from this sort of inherited thing at all. No, this is based on, that we believe that we receive God's grace, that as Pastor Nate said, we receive God's grace. And if they have not both parents pointing in that direction, it's just making it less likely that they're going to be in situations and circumstances in ways and have the example where they are going to choose for themselves to follow Jesus and to believe on him and to follow him as Lord. And when you're not united in some of those, as you mentioned, about most of the time we share a lot of values, even if, one spouse isn't a Christian, but there are some values that you might not share. The value of, whether it's corporate worship, youth, junior youth, what's the place of spiritual disciplines in their kids' lives? Are those being modeled? Those different things might make it less likely that that child for themselves would be able to put their faith in Jesus and choose to follow him as Lord.
Absolutely.
I think the reason this becomes a thing, like, what if the comment just said, hey, your children are prone to wander and they could all end up in hell? Just forget the Christian, non-Christian. That statement is still like, to all of us.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And it's because we don't really like to think of that. That's not a nice thought.
That's right.
They're kids.
Yeah.
They're sweet, and so to bring that up at all, we have to first recognize that there is indeed a heaven, there is indeed a hell, and there is indeed free will. And if we can agree on that, then we have to realize that our kids also have free will. So what is at play to help them make smart choices for eternity? Yeah. And a house divided cannot stand. So what's at play here? And I think with some of the best Christian parents ever, kids are still making choices for hell. So this is the stakes. And I think when we point the stakes out, people go like, oh, how could you? The stakes are high for every single parent.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're already struggling to do a good job. Yeah. We don't need the house divided on top. That's what the word.
And just in regards to what you just mentioned, that even when you do your best as parents kids still have their own choice. If you want to hear more on that, Pastor Tom recently preached on that in our Judges series on Samson's parents. So if you need some encouragement or something to hear more about that, I would recommend that sermon to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, guys. That's a good one to unpack. The next quote I want to read out to you guys is this one. It says, "Sex outside of marriage, even if it's consensual, is abuse."
Yeah, we had a good chat about this in our life group, because this is the word of the day, is consensual, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's consensual, everything's okay. At least, I mean, this is what kids are taught.
Yeah.
In the school system especially. And so consent is like, now we've agreed that it's okay, but if we believe what the Bible says, we believe something different than what the world would teach. So yes, if you are in the secular world and not a Christian, would you consider sex outside of marriage abuse? Probably not. But if we can believe what the Bible says, we say, well, this is the sexual ethic that we subscribe to, that sex is meant in the confine of marriage between a man and a woman, a renewal of a covenant before God, that they are one flesh now. And so it's way, like at every wedding we say, much higher, much holier calling, way more, right. Way more beautiful, but way more intense and way more limited, because it is so sacred. And so that's the quote there. And so if we believe that, then therefore by you engaging with that outside of the marriage covenant is therefore binding your body to others who are not your spouse for eternity, for your life. And so I think that that's really where people get a little, abuse. Well, you're abusing yourself actually and others by binding your body, binding yourself to someone who's not your spouse.
Yeah. And maybe I'll add on to that. I understand people's reticence to abuse carries as a very specific meaning in our current culture, especially legally, right?
Yeah.
So especially in the context of sex. So I can understand a discomfort maybe with that statement.
Yeah.
But let me make a parallel statement. We talk about people abusing prescription drugs. Prescription drugs that are meant for pain relief of acute things. It's very important. Praise the Lord for those things that can, relieve pain or, put people under anesthetic when they have operations. It's a wonderful, beautiful gift of God, just like sex. But you can abuse those prescription drugs, and now you're using them for not how they were designed, not in a way that leads to life and flourishing. And so we do actually use the word abuse exactly like that when we're talking about substances. So I think if someone's discomfort in that sentence came from the legal terminology that abuse has in relation to sex in our current culture, that makes sense. But we do use that word, and I think that idea is exactly parallel of how we would abuse other things.
Oh, awesome, guys. Thank you. The next one I'll throw you is, he said, don't date losers or loser Christians. Tell me more.
That one hit home, because as me and many of the guys in our life group said, is like, wow, we a couple of them were even dumped by their now wives at one other point in their life and went like, she took that seriously back then, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I think if I just look back in my own personal context in almost 20 years in youth ministry, the guys took a little while to grow up, a lot longer than maybe some of the girls who were kind of planning their future and families and thoughts way before guys were. We were still jumping off bridges and trying gainers and stuff like that, and and so I think that's a reality. But part of it as well is the track record comment that followed this.
That's right.
Is there a track record of bad choices over and over and over again, and they've been given the opportunity, they even knew the truth, and they keep choosing over and over again to slump? That's kind of where I would bring this, because otherwise you're just like, well, he's not a loser, he's doing the work, you could justify anyone as even Allie figured out that I thought I wasn't a loser, so for the justification there and the qualification, I would just say, when he talks about losers, he's talking about who are you allowing you to date your daughter, and is there a track record? Your son? Is there a track record there that you go they're growing and maturing, or is the track record they have no desire to grow and mature? And in my mind, losers stunted, stunted in their growth, and that's the question.
No, absolutely.
And I guess I'll only add to that what Pastor Tom was not saying. We believe that every person is made in the image of God, that God desires every person to become his child, to become his son or daughter on receiving the Lord Jesus Christ. So this was not at all about the intrinsic value of people or how God feels about any of us. It's that pragmatic, the pragmatic performance, the track record, exactly as Pastor Nate's described. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, guys. Thank you so much for diving into some of these things and unpacking some of these pieces today. I know that sermon is so good, but there's so much to it. And when you only have a certain amount of time to unpack it, it's good to kind of dig in a little more. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time listening to the podcast or you're just checking out New Hope, I just want to encourage you to jump on our website or our app and fill out that Connect card, because we really do want to connect with you and see how we can get you connected at New Hope. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time on Digging Deeper.